Good morning, dear friends. Today the topic for discussion on salary subject is income from salary is the treatment of perquisites. What are the perquisites? What do you mean by perquisites? Perquisites, they are casual emoluments. They are called the fees or the profit which are attached to any position, which are attached to any office, or in simple words we can say these are the facilities or amenities which are provided by the employer to the employee in addition to the salary which he is driving. These amenities or facilities may be provided in addition to salary, and the employee has got a right to derive these benefits by virtue of his holding the position in the office, by virtue of his post, and by virtue of his terms of employment. So what is important in that is the employee should have a right to receive such benefits, to receive such amenities. So these are called perquisites or facilities. Number one. Number two, these facilities may be paid in cash, or it may be paid in kind, or sometimes the employer may give the benefits in money's worth. The usual example of perquisites are the rent-free accommodation which is provided by the employer to the employee, or it may be in terms of the concession in the value in respect of the accommodation which has been provided by the employer to the employee, which may be owned by him or may not be owned by him. Or the other example may be the medical facilities, or the car or the motor vehicle which may be provided by the employer to the employee. Besides, other facilities may be there. So what is more important, what is pertinent to call any facility or benefit as a perquisite is that, number one, the employee should have got a right to receive it. It should not be in the nature of your contingent payment or voluntary payment, something like that. An employee, by virtue of his position in the office, he should have a right to derive those facilities. Only then you can call it as a perquisite. Number two, fundamental characteristics of perquisite is that it should have a legal origin. It means it should have been properly authorized by the employer. If a person has unauthorizedly used some of the facilities of the employer which are otherwise not authorized by the employer, doesn't mean that it will render him all the right to get the perquisites or to get the perks or its facilities as a perquisite every month. So it should have its legal origin. So two things are very, very important. So as to call it as an income to be taxable as a perquisite is that, number one, the employee should have a right to receive the benefits or the amenities or the facilities besides the salary. Number two, these should have been authorized by the employer. It means it should have legal origin. Means legal origin from the employer. So if these two characteristics are there, then we can call them as the perquisites or the facilities or the amenities. So we just try to see what are the perquisites which are usually given by the employer to the employee. We can give a list of those perquisites. The examples of those perquisites are, they may be the value of any rent-free accommodation which may be provided by the employer to the employee, and this rent-free accommodation may be furnished or unfurnished. Both the cases may be there. The employer may provide the employee the rent-free furnished accommodation, or he may provide unfurnished accommodation. The other example can be the value of any concession. Means the employer may give some concession in respect of the value of some value in respect of the rent being charged from the employee in respect of the accommodation provided by him. The third example can be the provision of gardener or watchman or sweeper or personal attendant or similar facilities which may be provided by the employer to his employee. The next example can be the provision of gas, or electricity or water which will be used by the employee for his household as his household items. Education facility, medical facility, provision of cars, or giving the expenses in respect of the car owned by the employee. These are some of the examples of the perquisites which may be there in the hands of the employee. Now we'll see the tax impact or the taxability of these perquisites. What are the tax implications? What is the tax treatment of these perquisites? For income tax purposes, the perquisites may be divided into three categories. Number one category is that the perquisites are amenities which are taxable in the hands of employees, all the employees. It means these are the perquisites which are extended by the employer to the employee, but they are taxable in the hands of all the employees. It means these are the perquisites which are taxable in respect of all the employees. Second type of category is that we are just discussing the taxability of these perquisites. The second category comes the perquisites are the amenities or the provision of facilities which are given by the employer to his employee, which are taxable only when the employee belongs to a particular category. What is that category? Why is it so? That will be discussing later on. So this is the second category. It means under this category, the taxability of the perquisites depend upon the status of the employee. I mean, if a person belongs to a particular specific category, then it will be treated as a taxable in his hands. Otherwise, it will not be treated as a taxable perquisites. The next category is tax-free perquisites. These are the tax-free perquisites, means these are the perquisites which are not taxable in the hands of the employee. Rather, some of those would be taxable in the hands of the employer as fringe benefit tax. But certainly, these will not be taxable in the hands of the employee, subject to fulfillment of some of the conditions that we just discuss later on. So now we just try to touch upon the first category, the perquisites which are taxable in the hands of all employees. We will just try to see the various items which fall under this category. So these are some of the facilities or the benefits or the amenities which are taxable in the hands of all employees. Number one is the rent-free accommodation which is provided by the employer to the employee, and this rent-free accommodation has been owned by the employer, may be owned by the employer or may not be owned by the employer, but that will be taxable in the hands of all the employees. The second category is if any concession has been given by the employer in respect of the rent pertaining to the accommodation which has been provided by the employer to the employee shall also fall under this category. It means it would also be taxable in the hands of all employees. The third type of perquisites which is taxable in the hands of all employees is the sum, means the amount which has been paid by the employer in discharging the monetary obligation of the employee. It means where an employer has paid any amount in respect of any obligation for which the employee was responsible to make. Means the employer was responsible to make such payment, but the employee did not make the payment, and but for the payment of the employee, this payment has been made by the employer. It means the monetary obligation of the employee has been discharged by the employer. Then this particular amount shall be treated as a taxable in the hands of all employees. For example, if an employer reimburses or pays the fees, the education fee of the children of the employee, it means then it is a taxable purse in the hands of the employee. It means the education fee of the children of the employee is the liability of the employee. In fact, the employee should have paid the amount of such fee in respect of the education of his children, rather this fee is being paid by the employer. So it would be taxable perquisites in the hands of the employer. Or the other example we can say is the income tax which has been paid by the employer in respect of the employee, because the payment of tax is the liability of the employee, and rather it is being paid by the employer, so it would be taxable in the hands of all the employees. The fourth example can be, the fourth such facility can be the value of any other fringe benefit. It doesn't consist of those benefits which come under chapter 12H of the Income Tax Act. So it means any value of any other fringe benefit would also be taxable other than those which are prescribed under chapter 12H. Those benefits would also be taxable in the hands of all the employees. So these are some of the facilities, examples of facilities which are taxable in the hands of all employees. The second category is the perquisites, which are taxable only in the hands of specified employees. What do we mean by specified employees? That we'll be discussing subsequent of that. The facilities, the type of facilities are the amenities which fall under this category are the provision of the services of a sweeper, or a gardener, or a watchman, personal attendant, or similar facilities. They are treated as a chargeable perquisites in the hands of these specified employees. The second category is free or concessional use of electricity, energy and water for household consumption, free or concessional education facilities provided by the employer in the education institution, either maintained by the employer himself or by someone else. So these are the facilities. The valuation of motor car or other vehicles. These are some of the facilities which are taxable in the hands of specified employees. So now the question arises, what do you mean by specified employee? The specified employee means any employee who falls in any one of these categories. It means if an employee falls in any of these categories, he will be called a specified employee. The first is, this employee is a director. It means he is a director of the company and he is also an employee of the company. It means a person who is a director of the company, he will be treated as, or he will be deemed to be the specified employee of the company. If he is not a director of the company, then if he is an employee of the company with a substantial interest in the company, holding 20% or more of the voting powers, then he will also be treated as the specified employees. Now, one thing is very important: employee with a substantial interest in the company. Substantial interest here means that he should be the beneficial owner of the shares. Beneficial owner means even if the employee is not the registered owner of the shares are not registered in name, but he is a beneficial owner, then he will also be treated as a specified employee and shall be deemed to have a substantial interest in the company. But here, these shares, where we mean by it that he should be the beneficial owner of the shares, these shares does not cover those shares which carry the fixed rate of dividend with or without the participating right. So these shares are not included in reckoning the 20% of the beneficial holding. So in a nutshell, we can say an employee who has got a substantial interest in the company. Substantial interest means he is a beneficial owner of the shares. Please mind it, there is a difference between the beneficial owner of the share and a person who is holding the share in his name. Even if a person may not be holding the shares, may not be a registered shareholder, still he may be a beneficial shareholder. So these categories are covered in that. Number 2, his holding should not be less than 20%. If he is fulfilling that particular this condition, then he will be deemed to be the employee having a substantial interest in the company. And the third category is that his income under their salary. Here, the income under their salary means he may be drawing a salary from more than one employer. So, aggregate means the taxable income under the salary, excluding the non-monetary purposes. It means it does not include the non-monetary purposes. It means here the salary means we can say the salary may include your basic pay plus you can say DA plus commission, bonus, or it may include the taxable portion of your allowances and perquisites. Taxable portion, I am just stressing on the taxable portion, but it will not include the non-monetary purposes. If the total income like that is exceeding 50,000 rupees, then will be deemed to be the specified employee. So, if a person falls in any of these 3 categories and he fulfills the relevant conditions, then he will be deemed to be the specified employee. Our next is the tax-free perquisites, and these tax-free perquisites are tax-free in respect of all the employees. So it means these are some of the facilities, or these are some of the types of perquisites which are not taxable in the hands of any of the employees. First category is food and beverages provided to the employees, where an employer provides food and beverages to the employees either in his factory or in his office. Then the payment made in respect of those things would not be taxable in the hands of the employees. It also includes the food and beverages which are provided by the employer to the employee through a vendor by payment vouchers, and these payment vouchers are not treated, they are not transferable. This particular facility also include those situations also. So these would not be taxable in the hands of any of the employees. Next category is loans to the employees. Here, loans to the employees means doesn't mean that all the loans which have been given by the employer to the employee. In fact, these regard to the loans, petty loans, the loans which may not exceed 20,000 per annum to the employee. It also covers those loans which are given to the employee in respect of the medical treatment of the employee or to the member of his family in respect of the diseases which are specified in Rule 13 of the Income Tax Act, Income Tax Rules. So, if an employee gets a loan for an amount not exceeding 20,000 rupees, or he gets a loan in respect of the medical treatment, in respect of the diseases which are stated in Rule 13 of the Income Tax Rules, then it will not be deemed to be the taxable perquisite in the hands of the employee. The third category which comes under the tax-free perquisites is the perquisites which are provided outside India, and this particular perquisite is in respect of those employees of Government of India who are citizens of India and have been rendering their services outside India. Any such person, if he gets the perquisites, then they shall be taxable in his hands. The next category is the rent-free house or the conveyance facilities. This particular facilities in respect of those rent-free houses, those rent-free accommodations and conveyance facilities which are given to the judge of a Supreme Court or a High Court. If the rent-free accommodation is provided to him, then it will not be treated as a taxable perquisites, rather it should be a tax-free perquisites in his hands. The next facility which falls under this category, the rent-free accommodation which has been provided to the officers of the Parliament or to the Union Ministers or to the leader of the opposition in the Parliament. If such rent-free accommodation is provided to such people, then it will be deemed to be the tax-free perquisites in the hands of the recipient. The next category is the education facility for children of employee. If such education facilities are provided by the employer to the employee, then these are not treated as a taxable perquisites in the hands of the employee, subject to certain conditions. So these are some of the examples which fall under these categories, and if the facilities or the amenities or the benefits which are provided like this, they will not be taxed in the hands of the employee. So they are called tax-free perquisites. Allotment of shares and debentures under any ES means employee stock option plan. If an employer gives the allotment of shares and debentures under the employee stock option plan or a fund which has been given by the employer in line with the guidelines issued by the central government, then it shall also be treated as a tax-free perquisite in the hands of the employee. So the next category is fringe benefits which are liable to tax in the hands of the employer. It means these are the facilities, these are the amenities which now have been provided by the employer to the employee, but still that would not be taxed in the hands of the employee. Rather, that those facilities or amenities would be treated as a fringe benefits, and they would be taxed in the hands of the employer as a fringe benefit tax. So in a nutshell, we can say these are some of the facilities. Number one is your recreation facilities. If an employer provides the recreation facilities to the group of employees, not the selected people, here to the group of employees, when some expenditure is incurred on that, then it would be treated as the fringe benefit and would be taxable in the hands of the employer as a fringe benefit tax. The next item is the training of employee. If an employer has incurred any expenditure for imparting training to the employees, or he has paid any fee in respect of the training which has been given by some other institution, then such expenditure shall be treated as a fringe benefit, and accordingly the tax would be levied as a fringe benefit tax on the employer. Third is the motor car provided by the employer. Here we may cover all such cases where the motor car may be provided by the employer and expenses have been incurred by the employer. It may also cover such cases where the motor car has been owned by the employee, but the expenses have been incurred by the employer. So all such expenses which have been borne by the employer in respect of the motor car provided by the employer or it has been owned by the employee shall be deemed to be the fringe benefit, and it would be taxable in the hands of the employer. Next is where provision has been made by the employer in respect of the health club, sports and similar facilities for the welfare of the employee. Any expenditure incurred on such facilities shall be liable to the fringe benefit tax, and that will be charged to the employer. Then expenses on telephones, including mobiles, incurred by the employer on behalf of the employee. These expenses may be for the purpose of official discharge of duties by the employee, or it may pertain to the personal nature of the personal expenses of the employees. In both the cases, these expenses would be liable to be taxed as fringe benefit taxes. Then comes the category of medical facility or the medical reimbursement, that is also taxed in the hands of the employer, subject to certain conditions and subject to fulfillment of certain conditions and certain rules. So these are some of the examples which are treated as the fringe benefit facilities. These are the facilities which are subject to fringe benefit tax in the hands of the employer. Thank you very much.